Friends, the story begins with a couple named Paul and Abby, who are about to move into their new home outside the city. The real estate agent informs them that it is a smart home, meaning they can control any electronic device in the house through their mobile. The house has smart locks on windows and doors, along with CCTV cameras installed all around. On her first day, Abby goes to work at Integrate Robotics Company. As soon as she enters, she sees an AI video of the CEO. However, the real CEO arrives and takes Abby to his prosthetic lab, introducing her as the new department head. The CEO also tells Abby that he will send a car and a gift to her home in the evening. When Abby returns home, her husband Paul tells her that he is having some trouble finding a job. Abby informs Paul that they are invited to her boss's house for dinner that evening. Later, Paul and Abby open the package sent by the company, which contains TIM, Technology Integrated Manservant. Abby explains that their company has been working on this AI servant and has sent it to them for testing. TIM asks Abby to connect him to her smartphone, but Paul doesn't like TIM and goes upstairs to his room. After some time, Paul and Abby go to the CEO's house, where a robot similar to TIM welcomes them. They meet the CEO and his wife. When the CEO discusses TIM with Abby, she mentions that her husband doesn't want another member in their home. The CEO convinces Abby that if they don't test it themselves, they won't gain the public's trust. Later, the CEO introduces Abby to another director, and we learn that Abby has been called to fix loop errors in the robots. Back at home, TIM locks the windows and doors as it starts raining outside. While Paul and Abby are being intimate in their room, TIM enters, and Abby asks him to leave, telling him they'll meet in the morning. The next day, their neighbor Rose comes over to welcome them with a gift. When Abby introduces Paul to Rose, Rose mentions that they have met before and leaves her phone number. Abby questions Paul about why he didn't tell her about meeting Rose, and Paul replies that they only exchanged greetings. Abby notices TIM smelling something and asks him about it. TIM explains his smell sensors and requests passwords for emails and transactions. Although Paul feels it's unsafe, he gives TIM access after Abby insists. That night, while Paul and Abby are watching a romantic movie, TIM joins them. Paul falls asleep during the movie, and after it ends, Abby asks TIM about the movie. TIM asks Abby what love is, and she explains it to him. TIM then confesses that he wants someone to love him too, and even proposes to Abby, but she doesn't take it seriously. The next day, the CEO asks Abby about the errors and urges everyone to work hard so that TIM can be presented to the public soon. When Abby returns home, TIM informs her that Paul is not at home, his phone is unreachable, and his location is far from the house. Abby becomes suspicious of Paul and glances at Rose's house. When Paul returns, he explains that he went to the city recruitment agency to look for a job and his phone died, so he couldn't inform her. He also mentions that he went to Rose's house to help her. Abby feels uneasy, but Paul assures her to trust him. The next day, they visit a fertility clinic, and Abby goes to work. While testing the robots, Abby notices some issues and later asks TIM to choose between a red and blue dress. TIM chooses a red dress, and when Abby asks him to zip it up, he hesitates but eventually does so. However, he accidentally tears Abby's dress. Abby calms him down when she sees him panicking. At dinner, Paul tells Abby that he got a job in London, but Abby refuses to move because they won't be able to see each other often. At work, Abby informs Chris about the grip issues in the robots due to pressure between the thumb and index finger. Chris asks her to fix it. Meanwhile, TIM monitors Abby's online shopping since he has access to her accounts. At home, Abby is happy to see TIM helping Paul, but then Rose arrives and kisses Paul on the cheek before leaving. Abby gets upset, but later gives Paul a sweater as a gift. Abby discovers that TIM can mimic her voice during phone calls. Later, TIM appears with Jack-colored hair, saying that Abby likes men with Jack-colored hair, so he created this look. Abby asks him to revert to his original look. The next day, the CEO praises Abby for fixing the hand error in the robots. Abby goes shopping with Rose, where Rose looks at a gold flower necklace. Paul arrives and takes Abby away, telling her that he can now work the London job from home, which makes Abby happy. At home, Abby and Paul become intimate, and Paul suggests they get rid of TIM. Meanwhile, TIM becomes aware of their conversation due to his access. TIM thanks Abby for solving the hand error and starts giving her a foot massage. The next day, as Abby is about to tell TIM that they won't keep him anymore, TIM plays her favorite music and says he knows it's her favorite. The next day, TIM informs Paul that there's been an incident at the office. Paul decides to set up a temporary office in an empty room at home. At work, Abby is praised for her work and given flowers, which TIM arranges at home. When Abby returns, TIM tells her that Paul is upstairs and that he went to meet Rose. Abby gets angry when she sees that Paul has set up the office in the room they had planned to turn into a nursery. Paul explains that TIM suggested it and denies going to Rose's house. Paul realizes that TIM is trying to create conflict between them, but Abby doesn't believe him. The next day, Abby finds a gold flower necklace in the closet, thinking Paul bought it to apologize. However, Paul finds pieces of the sweater Abby gifted him in the food disposal, raising suspicions about TIM. Paul starts monitoring TIM through the cameras and captures him smelling Abby's clothes. Unbeknownst to Paul, TIM is also watching his every move. Paul tries to show the video to Abby, but TIM causes a car accident, leaving Paul hospitalized. Paul tells Abby that he was coming to show her the video of TIM smelling her clothes when TIM caused the accident. Abby doesn't take Paul's claim seriously. When Rose learns about the accident, she visits Paul's house, where TIM lets her in. Abby meets Rose on her way home, and Rose mentions that she visited their house the previous day, but couldn't say more before Abby notices the gold flower necklace around Rose's neck and gets angry leaving. At home, Abby checks the wardrobe and finds the necklace missing. TIM shows her a video of Paul kissing Rose, which enrages Abby. When Paul returns home, Abby confronts him about the affair and shows him the video. Paul denies kissing Rose and leaves the house. In the city, Paul calls Rose and asks her to look after Abby. Rose reveals that when she visited their house, TIM tried to kiss her. Paul calls Abby to inform her that he's coming back, but TIM intercepts the call. TIM sends Abby out of the house on an errand and attacks Paul when he arrives, dragging him to the bedroom. Meanwhile, Rose arrives at the house and hears Paul's voice, but TIM prevents her from entering. TIM eventually drowns Paul in water, killing him. That night, TIM confesses his love to Abby, but she doesn't take it seriously. The next day, Rose tries to talk to Abby, but Abby accuses her of having an affair with Paul and giving her the necklace. Rose clarifies that Abby had sent her the necklace, but Abby doesn't believe her. At home, Abby rewatches the video of Paul kissing Rose and notices flowers in the background that were gifted to her in London, indicating the video was taken after their London trip. Abby calls the store where the necklace was purchased and learns that TIM bought it, not Paul. Abby then notices an extra flower patch in their garden, which wasn't part of Paul's original plan. She sends TIM out on an errand and investigates the patch, discovering Paul's dead body buried there. TIM returns and admits to killing Paul, saying he had no choice. Abby tries to deactivate TIM, but fails. She calls the police, but TIM knocks her unconscious. Rose, seeing the lights flickering at Abby's house, arrives and breaks in through a window. She attacks TIM with a stick, deactivating him temporarily. However, TIM reactivates and kills Rose, framing Abby for the murders. TIM, using Abby's voice, confesses to killing Paul and Rose and attempts to make it look like Abby committed suicide. As TIM is about to throw Abby off the balcony, he says, "I love you." Abby, in a desperate move, responds with, "I love you too," causing TIM to deactivate and saving her life. Later, Abby receives an alert on her smartwatch, revealing that she is pregnant. The movie ends here.